what was it like as a kid, like having your dad as the icon, Sting, like growing up with your dad, traveling the entire world, being a professional wrestler?
I was born into it, so I never really knew anything different.
All aboard! It's time for Choo Choo with Jay Sherga.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another ride of Choo Choo. Today I am joined by one very special guest. I am joined by the son of the icon Sting. We have Steven Borden. Steven, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be
No,
here.
absolutely. And I know it was a little tough. We've both been very busy here, but I appreciate your time hopping on here. But let's just jump right onto it. So you got to be a part of your dad's retirement match. Huge for you, I totally imagine. At AEW Revolution almost 2 weeks ago at this point. Your brother and you guys got to dress up as previous versions of Sting, different eras of Sting. Your brother being the Surfer Sting, you being Wolfpack Sting. My question here is, whose idea was it to have you guys involved in the match?
We've actually tossed it around for probably a few years now, my dad and I, of just doing something together. It wasn't necessarily always a plan to do for his retirement match. That started to come about, yeah, maybe in the last, pretty much when his retirement was announced and we had a firm date. I think that's when we started establishing, let's do something. And then obviously if it's for his retirement, it didn't make sense for just me and my dad to do it. It ever since any sort of formal plan came into play, we knew it was going to be Garrett and I. Um, Fun fact: we talked about throwing my sister in there at one point. We both have a little sister, Gracie. Ended up not doing that, but yeah, it's been a plan for a while, and it was cool to see all the pieces come together.
Oh, absolutely. And as a fan, I marked out, not gonna lie, that entrance was amazing because like nobody expected it, which made it super cool.
Did you think my brother was my dad when my brother came out?
At first, yeah. And I think a lot of people said that. I said that I saw that all over Twitter. And I was like, whoa. I was like, what the hell? And then you came out and I'm like, holy shit. Dude, you guys looked amazing. Absolutely incredible. But to rewind real quick to what you were just saying, are you allowed to tell me like what the role your sister was gonna do, or do you not get that far?
We never got that far, but it was more. I think it started as Garrett and I, and then it was like, well, shoot, all my kids are going to be there, and if Gracie's just going to be sitting in the front row, is it weird that she's not involved? Because obviously the camera, panned over to her a few times, but it just, it made more sense. I think Garrett and I were the ones who got beat up a few weeks before in Phoenix, and so yeah, we never got far enough to really get into the creative on that.
Sure. What was the experience like for you? Because obviously it was a big deal, your dad's retirement match and stuff, but the crowd was hot, backstage was probably crazy, everything about it. Like, how was it?
It was awesome, man. It was like uh very, you're kind of trying to, everybody's holding on to every moment because it was, it's the last ride. So I think backstage it's probably a very different atmosphere than a normal AEW pay-per-view. Um, there's a lot of old, Dallas Page and Lex were there. Obviously Flair was there, and a bunch of Nikita Koloff, old names that my dad knows very well and has worked with for a long time. So there's kind of the element of everybody capturing conversations with him, a lot of people sharing stories and all those kinds of things. So, sad, but also happy, a lot of fun, a lot of, excitement and things like that.
So this is technically like your dad's second retirement because he did have to retire for a little bit when he was in WWE when that whole incident happened with Seth Rollins. Now, after that, did he actually think he was done, or did he like was he just like waiting for like a chance to get out of there, essentially?
I don't know if he necessarily thought he was for sure done. I think there was a period of time where it did seem like he was probably never going to be able to wrestle again and certainly not do anything risky again. The doctors, from what I remember, were pretty stern. Like you need to be careful doing anything. Like even if you get in a, little fender bender type situation, that could be bad for you.
Sure.
He loves wakeboarding and wake surfing. They were saying none of that. Um, but I don't think it was ever, I don't think I imagined that it was just over at that point. I think we just didn't know.
Sure. And I mean, if it was at that time, that would have been a real shitty way to go out for sure, you know, like a complete accident like that. And me being a Sting fan, when I watched that and then I found out that he couldn't wrestle again, I was like, oh my God. But then when he did appear in AEW, oh my gosh, I think Winter is Coming is what it was, right? Yeah. And all the snow and everything, dude, that was amazing. Like, I've been a huge fan of your dad my entire life. I've been a wrestling fan my entire life. So just to see his whole entire career and the way it ended, I don't think there was a better way for him to go out.
Yeah, I think it went out the way he was supposed to go, and AEW, like the way they handled everything from his very beginning. And this is what he says publicly, but it's also what he says when we're in conversation together. Like it's just gone well. His relationship with everyone over there, and it's just been, yeah, I think it just worked out the way it was supposed to.
What a crazy way for him to go out, though. Like the glass and everything like that. First of all, Darby Allin's crazy, like flip through the glass. What an animal. But even your dad taking the one against the turnbuckle was insane, too. Like at his age, getting thrown through real glass like that, man, what a savage.
Yeah, he does not, he has always been so, he just doesn't want to be the old guy. He knows that he is older and he can't, high fly like he could in his 20s and 30s, but he just doesn't want to be the old guy that's also boring to watch. And so he's willing to, should we bring the glass out? What can I jump off of? Like, how can I navigate around my constraints of, a couple knee surgeries and, hundreds of, dozens of surgeries. And so, yeah, it was cool. And, Darby was dead set on doing that spot. And yeah,
He's crazy, man.
yeah,
And it's funny
wild.
because like I know in wrestling they use like a lot of the times they use like sugar glass and stuff like they do in the movies. But like when he jumped through that and then they had that shot of his back, I was like, holy shit.
Oh,
I couldn't believe it, man.
it's so gross. It's gnarly. Like it was deep, a very, very deep gash. And
Multiple.
multiple, yeah. Yeah.
I could never. I could never. That's why I like being a fan. I could never do the stuff like that. But so like did you ever want to be a pro wrestler or do any pro wrestling training? Because the reason I asked that is like in the retirement match, your stinger splashes were very good, like extremely impressive. You got some air, man.
Thank you, man. Um, we we joked about that, my brother and I. He was on, I forget, it might have been like Fightful or one of those. We're interviewing him the other day, and they were comparing they were comparing his and mine, and the way my brother delivered this one liner, I posted on my story. I laugh every single time. It's probably funnier to me because he's my brother and like the dude just makes me laugh. But um, he was describing how, when he went into it, he's like, I think I'm just gonna go about half. I don't want to like jump too far. I don't want, because when we were demoing the day before, both of us got about 4 jumps in. They had a ring in the hotel. And
In
my
the
brother went
hotel,
over the,
crazy.
yeah, they had a conference room with the ring, and my brother went over the top. He actually flipped and fell out of the ring on one of his. And so he was pretty like, I don't want to do that live. So in his mind, he was saying, I think I'm just gonna go like 50%. And then the way he delivered that one liner on the interview was like, I went, yeah, 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 cool. I think I'm just gonna go all out though. And that was our conversation. So I think Garrett probably could have jumped a lot farther, but he was
Sure.
trying not to make a fool of himself, which I probably should have thought that, but I just couldn't help it.
Oh, I mean, you crushed it, man. Like I was like, holy crap. Like it looked like you did it 1,000 times. Like you got a ton of air, you made great contact. It was incredible.
Thanks, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
for
it. Funny.
sure. So so the first part of that question was did you ever want to be a pro wrestler or ever do like any pro wrestling training, or like was that like your first time in a ring like doing stuff?
First time in a ring, man. Like
Damn.
well, so I've stepped in rings before, like as a kid, we, a
Sure.
couple times here and there, but never any wrestling at all. The first stinger splash I ever did was the day before. Same with Garrett, in the
Damn.
hotel. Um, and I think just I never, Garrett and I both, we never really planned on wrestling. Just we always thought this is just not what we're gonna do. I spent most of my life wanting to play pro football, so I finished football, graduated 2015 at college, bounced around NFL tryouts for a couple of years, just never landed on a roster, and then got into the field of sports science, which I'm in now. And the thought of wrestling has never really crossed my mind. That's maybe the wrong way to put it. I think I just always left it as my dad's thing. Um, and then I mentioned this a couple times in a couple chats recently, but in his last days, it became more of a thought in the back of my head, of, would I ever want to attempt this? I don't know. Um, but I was been pretty clear that, or pretty, I guess, open with the fact that I don't know if that's just because, um, I'm not, part of it's just that he's stepping away. And so there's like, that's kind of a way for me to hold on to that kind of element. And then the other part of it might just be, a challenge for myself. And there's a few things in that, but long story short, I've never really considered it. Um, and there aren't any direct plans or anything like that for me to get into wrestling.
Sure. Okay. So you actually kind of got into my next couple of questions here. So obviously we started this off talking about your dad, but let's talk about you for a minute. So tell me about yourself. How old are you?
32.
Okay, so I'm 30, so you're 2 years older than me. And what do you do for a living? You said sports science?
Yeah, so I manage a sports technology company. We sell like a wearable. It's like a fitness wearable. It's very niche, but the modality is called blood flow restriction training. So if you've ever been injured or you've been in a physical therapy clinic, it's likely that you've seen somebody. Aaron Rodgers, you saw him doing this a bunch with his torn Achilles. It's like a cuff that goes around your leg if your lower body's injured, and
Oh,
it
okay.
actually inflates and restricts some blood going into your leg. And you do that while you're training generally, and it allows you to train with less weight and still maintain muscle. So for somebody like Aaron Rodgers who's got a torn Achilles, he probably can't squat heavy. Um, so he's going to use BFR while he squats and lunges and things like that. It's a long-winded answer of saying the company that I manage produces a wireless pair of those that works with an app, and so it's just day to day for me. I'm managing an e-commerce company, um, and that's that.
Wow, awesome, man. So you played football for Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Tight end, yeah.
Yep.
So was that your goal? That was your, well, actually, you literally just said that. So your goal originally was to make it in football. Like the NFL was apparently probably your dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And we never could get the passing offense going. So I'm a, reasonably sized guy, but if you compare me to like a standard tight end in the NFL, 6'6", 270. Like well, that's a pretty big tight end, but I wasn't one of the 6'6", 270 guys. My game was more speed and catching. And so I needed more catches to really garner any sort of NFL demand, and just didn't really pull that off in college. So it left me kind of a free agent for a few years, bouncing out of NFL tryouts and all that. And yeah, I just never quite pulled it off.
Was it a tough pill to swallow?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's still like every year when July, August rolls around, you're just like internal clock.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm supposed to be reporting to camp or something,
Uh,
and so I spend the first, August and September, like so many people who are done playing football, just going, man, maybe I should try one more time. Like it's
oh,
just.
now I feel bad if I rub salt on the wound.
Oh no, you're good, man. I've had this conversation so many times, and it's it's hard, but it's like so easy to accept. Like it just is what it is. I accepted it pretty quick, but it's just such a great sport, and it's very hard to replicate that feeling of 80, 90, 100,000 people screaming,
Oh my
band
God.
and all that.
Yeah.
It's the coolest thing. So
I can only imagine, but like, so I played football, but I played modified football in middle school and I was like third string safety. So I played the fifth quarter when the game was over and all the kids that like sucked at football got to play. That's when I had my 15 minutes of fame.
it's still though it's the same. Like it just was it tackle football or
Oh yeah.
you said modified? Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing like it, man. Like and for
Oh, it's
even for
awesome. It's
me,
fun.
like playing college ball, some of my best memories were at that age, high school, junior high, even as a kid. You might as well be playing pro ball at that age. It feels like such a big deal.
Oh, what a good feeling. I didn't even care that I was playing the fifth quarter. The fact that I was just playing,
For
like my
sure.
dad would be there watching me and stuff just felt amazing. And like I even now, like it's been ever since COVID, I haven't played, but before that, I was in like a beer softball league with my friends. And like, dude, that felt like I was in like the World Series, just like playing with the boys, having a couple beers before, just like having fun playing softball. Getting the W just felt great. And we get so mad when we lost, and it's so funny because it literally does not matter.
Dude, I think people need more stuff like that. Like
Absolutely. Go outside more, everybody.
Yeah, go outside more, like compete in something, do something like even that, like even though it doesn't matter, it's not going to alter your life one way or another, whether you win or lose. Like you said, you're with the boys, you're having fun, you're getting competitive, you're trash talking. Like, I don't know. It just
Talking
makes
so much
life
shit.
better.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it's so fun. But so back to the wrestling thing. What was it like as a kid, like having your dad as the icon, Sting, like growing up with your dad, traveling the entire world, being a professional wrestler?
I was born into it, so I never really knew anything different. And so I was born in 92. So by that age, he was already kind of well into being Sting. Um, Pinnacle, I guess, moments that people talk about would be like Starrcade 97. So for perspective, I was 5 years old when Starrcade 97 happened. The kind of the peak NWO era. I was so young that I was old enough to kind of ascertain, okay, he's different than maybe some other dads. But it didn't really, he was home so much. Like most of his 300 days of travel a year happened before I was born. So by the time I
Oh,
was
okay.
born, he was traveling to me what felt like a couple times a month maybe, and he was pretty good at drop in drop out. Like he would sometimes catch a flight home the same night if he could. So it kind of felt like he was a normal dad. Like he was there a lot, would go to football practice.
So he was around.
Oh yeah, he was around. Like I don't ever remember him being gone, like as far as like chronically gone. For me, my entire childhood he was home. And then
That's
even with the TNA years when I was in high school, like it was once a month. It felt like maybe twice a month he'd be gone for a couple days, and then the rest of the time he's home.
that's crazy because that's leading to my next question because I see a lot of stories where like wrestlers are missing like birthdays, like holidays, like sporting events, for example, and he was always there.
Yeah, I'm sure he had to miss things here and there, but I don't think Garrett or I have memories of standing up there at graduation or at some game going, my dad's not here. Like that's a huge bummer. But I just don't think it happened.
Oh, you guys are super fortunate then for sure. And so Garrett's older than you, right?
Yeah,
How old is he?
he's 34. He's 2 years older.
Oh, okay. So you're basically close to the same age. So essentially the same thing. So he was there for him and his stuff as well.
Yeah,
So I feel like a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that he never made the jump to WWE until like later. Because if he jumped to WWE right when WWE bought out WCW, that travel schedule for WWE is absolutely insane. So
yeah.
like when I said that thing about missing holidays, birthdays, sporting events, stuff like that, that usually pertains to just like WWE wrestlers because like a majority of the other companies, every other company pretty much has a much lighter schedule.
Yeah, it's I think by the time I was old enough to understand what was going on, and kind of in a position where he was kind of calling his own shots contract wise, and he wasn't going to take a contract that required him to be on the road 200 300 days a year. So he's probably willing to give up a few things in order to just be home more, and I think it paid off. His longevity and his own happiness have are to thank for that.
Oh yeah, I mean if he had the WWE schedule like that, like I don't think he would have made it to like being able to perform at the level he's performing now at literally 65 years old.
Yeah.
Insane, dude. It's absolutely crazy. Now, were you a wrestling fan growing up? Like, were you like excited to watch your dad on TV?
We again were so he wrestled, WCW ended early 2000, 2001. And he spent, 8 or plus years not wrestling. So that would be like most of the childhood time. Like for me, that was age, 8 to high school. And he wasn't wrestling really at all in that era. Um, and that would have been the age that I was old enough to understand. So the
Sure.
WCW days, we weren't really allowed to watch. I think my mom was just telling me the other day a story of my dad didn't want us to watch because he didn't want us to get upset. And I think it was Bischoff maybe or somebody. They hit him in the head. It was like a dummy on the ground that looked like my dad. I'd have to go back and watch the match, but I think they took out a golf club or something and like actually hit it like a driver across the head.
Jesus.
And my brother had been begging my mom, please let me watch dad. And she turned on the TV right at that part. And my brother just like lost it, started crying. So
As
so
anyone
she had
would.
to
Who wants to see their
exactly.
dad get hit with a golf club?
Right.
Jesus.
And so she had to call my dad after, and my dad was going, Garrett, I'm okay. It's okay. That wasn't me, you know? So like we didn't watch. And then, but yeah, I think we still were around it and we knew some of the guys and stuff. So there's an element of loving it because we're familiar with it, but we didn't watch it the way other people did.
So like what were kids in school like? Like knowing that you were like Sting was your dad.
It was always more of a thing when we showed up at, as the new kids at school because people would find out. Um, and Garrett and I just have never volunteered that information to anybody for several reasons. But I would say, there's been maybe 3 times in my life that I've in conversation just volunteered the information that my dad was saying just because it made sense and the context of it was fine. But in general, it's just like I just prefer it not to be a thing. But yeah, whenever we'd show up at a new school, people usually found out, and you just answer kind of the same questions over and over again for a while.
Sure.
And but then people get used to it, and we spent a good chunk of our life at one school, and I think people got to the point where they just knew, that's just Mr. Borden. Everybody called him Mr. Borden,
That's
and
crazy.
yeah,
Oh, that's
so
mad cool. And it's wild because like you and your brother, you both look like very much like your dad. Like back to what
yeah,
you were saying before, like with the entrance where you asked, so like if I thought your brother was your dad, like yeah. And then you came out and I was like, wait, what? I was like so perplexed, man. Like it's crazy how identical you guys look. And you
that was
both
the
look
goal.
great. And I think I read, well, I didn't read, I watched on one of the podcasts you guys did where so that was actually his original gear from those time frames, right?
Yeah, yeah, probably. I've got a couple of videos I've been meaning to post. There's some like, funny stories of him he had to dig through he's got a, big container with everything. And that jacket's 35 years old,
That's
one Garrett wore.
insane. It all looked so good.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing is much more of a collector's item than the trench coat I wore. It was one of his trench coats, but obviously those are, there's a couple of those that he wore. But yeah, those were everything we wore. Even the mechanics gloves that I had on, I could have probably just bought some, but he had a pair of red ones that he wore from, the NWO days. He sent those because he's in Texas, so he sent me a box with a bunch of stuff, and yeah, everything was his
Man,
own stuff.
what was it like having the face paint on? Like that was that your first time like being face painted like your dad?
No, we did it as kids, I think for something. There was a few times that our face got painted. But first time probably as an adult that I can remember. And Charlie Ramone, he did the face paint because for my dad, it's hard. He can paint him. It's like tying a tie, like it's easy to tie your own, but then if you have to face somebody, it just feels different.
Yeah.
So Charlie Ramone did my face paint. He did an awesome job. Went through a couple iterations to try to like nail the look. But yeah, it was cool.
What was it like when you came out in that entrance and just having the crowd there? Like I can't well actually I mean you played football and stuff like that, so it's probably pretty similar, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's similar. Similar for sure. I think this is different because, closed in arena, um, i- more intimate's the wrong word, but it's just a different feel being indoors versus, South Carolina and Georgia and all their arenas are open air. Um, well, pretty much every football stadium
Well,
is.
and this being your dad's last match probably had some like emotions in there and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I was before I went out, they played that video on the screen, the tribute video, and I was standing, at my spot, getting ready to run out, and like I watched that video alongside everybody else. I had never seen it before, um, so yeah, the emotions were high for everyone, I think.
Oh man, you guys absolutely crushed it. So other than the retirement match you had a part in, like is there a favorite memory or moment in your dad's career that you can think of?
Oh, that's a good question. It is wild because Garrett and I didn't watch a ton, so we've actually gone
Yeah.
back and started watching a ton now. I think his the Starcade entrance is pretty cool. Like I really um I just thought that was the music I think is pretty iconic. Sting um pulling. I just watched the other day. Well, was talking to Dallas Page about this. when he pulled him up, when he hooked DDP up and took him into the rafters. That was pretty cool. And that was like, you watch that and you're like, man, that's so risky. Like,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, when they do stunts like that, they're normally in very controlled environments. But in this case, there's people trying to attack both of them while they're doing it. And, you know, so that was pretty wild. There's a ton, I'm sure.
oh absolutely. And like as I said, I've been a wrestling fan my entire life, and I'm pretty similar to you, where like the old school NWO days and stuff like that. Like I was never very like I was young, so like I didn't actually like watch that stuff live. So I've always gone back and watched that stuff. But from being a fan and actually like remembering and being old enough to watch and stuff like that, I think my favorite era of your dad to this day is going to be when he was like the Joker Sting. Dude,
Hmm. Interesting.
he crushed it, man. He did that so well. It was absolutely incredible.
He had a blast with that. He definitely enjoyed doing that. I think for him, it was like a mix up and, you know, different from the normal thing.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, we actually tossed around the idea of doing Joker Sting for this as well, but we just didn't think it would have go over as well as, you know, maybe a more classic
Oh,
Wolfpack or
I mean
something like that.
the Surfer Sting and that Wolfpack Sting, you couldn't have done it better. Like it
Yeah.
was absolutely incredible. Um, so I mean, it's been almost 2 weeks now. This is going to launch on Tuesday, so it'll be a little over 2 weeks on the time that I air this. But obviously, the hype for you and your brother and your dad has been absolutely incredible. Like, are you still feeling the hype? Like, feeling the high?
Oh yeah, man. It's great. Like it's wild to see the outpouring of, you know, just love for my dad. That's been really cool. I've just seen a lot of tweets and messages and, you know, posts and all that kind of stuff, which has been really cool. I'm glad he can kind of relax now. And, you know, he got the last big stressor, um, you know, dealt with and
Sure.
got the match handled and stuff. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Dude, your dad's an animal. Even at his age, like doing the wild stuff, jumps and stuff he's doing. And oh my gosh, absolutely
Crazy.
crazy. So, what did your dad say to you after the match? Like after you guys went backstage, like what was the first thing he said to you and your brother?
I don't remember the first thing he said, but I do remember, you know, in the ring when Garrett and I went back out there, he just said like we just kept saying that was so awesome, you know, we're proud of you, and he was saying the same thing back, um, and you know, he was just happy with how everything went.
Sure.
He just said like, you know, I'm proud of my sons, and obviously for us, it's like, you know, we didn't do much, Dad. You know, we just kind of did a little walkout and a few jumps, but you know, he was just there was a huge sense of relief. I think from us as well, just knowing, you know, he didn't get injured. Like,
Yeah.
you know, on his last match, that would have been such a bummer.
Oh my
And
God.
If Darby would have gotten injured, you know, how do we
I'm
navigate
surprised he
that?
didn't.
Yeah, I mean yeah. So everything just went well. So it was relieving.
Did you know before the match he was going to go through the glass?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah,
What an
I
hand.
saw him standing up on the ladder before, and is like so high up there, and just yeah, it's just wild.
Well, I was actually Darby. Yes, that makes sense too. I guess it's a another answer to the question. But I meant like your dad. Did you know your dad was going to go through the
Oh,
glass at 65?
yeah, there was a few different ways that it could have happened, but I knew he was going to go through glass. He wanted to bring out
He wanted to go out with
the
a
big
bang.
guns. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Well, all right, brother. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. We ran through pretty much everything I had here on my list. So I'll send you some clips and stuff, tag you when it's posted. And I appreciate all your time, man. Thank you so much.
You as well, man. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. And best wishes to you and your brother. I know your brother's like his YouTube channel's going big and stuff like that. You both are getting a bunch of followers, a bunch of love. So thank you guys for making Sting's retirement match absolutely memorable. You guys
Oh,
crushed it.
thank you, man.
Absolutely, man. Talk to you later, man.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.